Everybody, shh. First, I apologize if I hack, spew, or sneeze. I have a head cold. I am not going to be able to talk as loud as I normally might, so you really need to listen today. I may lose my voice at some point. You need to listen today because this is the fourth and final of the rules training sessions. The exam is this time, next week, across the way in the multi-purpose room. There are some sample tests passing around that you can have a look at. I didn't bring enough for everybody, so please just share the ones that are going around. Don't think that if I know the answers on these two tests, you know what the test will be. Obviously, I'm going to mix and match from one year to the next. There are resources online, which I'll try and send you a link for sample tests that you can take to prepare yourself. This rule session is also important because this is the only set of rules that you need to know to do well on the test that cannot be found in the green book, because we're going to cover the relevant portions of the local rules as well as a little bit from here, which you're going to learn in field mechanics on Saturday. And since some of you won't be able to do field mechanics until the 23rd, I'm going to tell you what portions of this you might need to know for the test. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, and what we're going to do today is now how you take charge of and make a game happen. We're actually going to end with the beginning. And so we're going to go to Rule 3, which is game preliminaries. 3.01 is a rule you need to know, because it says before the game begins, the umpires shall. Everyone understands that shall is a mandatory word. These are things you have to do. Again, reinforcement that you are required to require strict observance of the rules. You, the umpire, don't get to decide, hey, for this game we're going to waive, we're not going to follow something in this rule book. You don't have the authority to do that. I don't have the authority to do that. Okay, these are from on high, Williamsport. You need to check the condition of the field. That's one of your obligations. The managers will agree that the field is playable. We obviously here in San Ramon Valley Little League play a lot of our games in March and April and May when it can still rain. The managers will get out and decide whether to call this game. Something you need to know is we have a website and a phone number, which I'll provide you for the link on that. But you need to check it if the weather's dicey and you're not sure you really have a game that day. If the game is not called an hour prior to the game's start time, and you report and the game is called, you are paid. You are paid, regardless of whether the game is played. All right? But you are there, and one of the things you can do is have input as to whether the field is playable. Most managers want to get the game in. And there will be a three-way dynamic between whoever is in charge of the fields or with the league who wants to protect the fields, the two managers who want to get the game in, and you, who's kind of a bystander while this is ongoing. However, once the plate meeting occurs, it is you who decide whether the game will be called. The managers become divested of that authority. You may consult with them. Hey, Cardinals manager, what do you think? It's kind of pouring right now. Should we call this game? Well, I think so. Or you may go to, hey, A's manager, how about you? It's like, well, gosh, it's the fourth inning and we're up by 3. Not really. Then you have to make a decision, but it's best to get a consensus from your managers. Okay, the other things you have to do, it's your job to get baseballs. Okay, there should be someone there who supplies you with baseballs. Tell a manager, where are my baseballs? Additional balls have to be available. For Los Cerros, it's easy because they're up in the scorer's shack. There's usually plenty of balls up there. Where this gets tricky is getting balls when you're at AA, so you need to make sure the managers give you enough balls. You are always supposed to have 2 alternative balls. Why do you think we have that? Why is it in the rules? Remember my 3 themes? Which one does that have anything to do with?
Fairness.
Pace, absolutely. You have to have 2 additional balls. If you happen to have one of those fancy pouches to put them in, that's great. Otherwise, you all know, they all get stuck right there in the screen somewhere so that you have them handy. That is a rule to have 2 additional balls. If I come out to a field and I find out that the game is dragging because every time a ball gets fouled, someone has to chase it down because you don't have another ball in hand, I will raise that with you as something you need to pay attention to. So these are things you have to do. 301, know what you have to do before the game. Now we can skip to rule 3.09. This rule will be on the test. I'm just going to tell you that. 3.09, I don't care about this mingling with spectators stuff in the first sentence. That's important for tournaments and such like that. But the second sentence of 3.09, this is one of my focuses this year because this rule has been so disregarded by managers. Managers or coaches must not warm up a pitcher at home plate or in the bullpen or anywhere else at any time. Period. Okay? Everyone clear on that? So you're at Alamo Field and you see little Timmy warming up on the side with what appears to be an adult wearing a cap matching the team he plays for. In other words, presumably a coach. What are you as the umpire going to do?
Call time is always stop.
Yes, you will do that. Okay? And if he says, but I don't have anybody else in the dugout to warm him up, what do you say?
Sorry.
Sorry. That's against the rules. Okay? We will enforce this rule this year. Now, 3.10 are some clarifications of things I already talked about. 3.10a says the managers of both teams shall agree on the fitness of the playing field before the game starts. Okay? It is not your job to, for example, enforce whether the home team has someone there putting the stripes down. Okay? That's not your job. The home team and the visiting team, they have to do all that, but you can't start the game until the field is at a certain minimum level of preparation. Such as, for example, putting the lines around the box so that you can see where the batter's box is. Okay, those types of things are not optional. And it is the manager's job both to agree if there's some question as to whether the field is fit, and also to make sure that the field is fit for play. If you go back to 3.01, that is 3.01b, make sure that all of the playing lines are marked. Okay? The most important ones for you are the foul lines down either side and the box. Now, 3.10b is what we talked about. The umpire-in-chief shall be the sole judge as to whether and when play shall be suspended during a game. Now, let me ask you this question. When does a game begin?
When you say it does.
Okay, start over here. No.
When you say play ball.
No.
When the first pitch is done.
No.
When the umpire says it's begun.
That's actually true. And when do you say when it's going to begin?
And the
When you're ready.
Well, that's a very good answer too. How about I'll give you a little hand. Look at what's highlighted on toward the bottom of the front page. This is a rule I actually screw up all the time. I usually think it's when the first pitch is thrown. Everyone see that? It's when the plate meeting ends. When the plate meeting ends, you thank the managers, and we're going to cover the plate meeting in a minute. Have your players take the field, turn to the official scorekeeper, and say, note the time. The game has begun. And again, because pace of play has been a very serious issue for us, this is another rule we are going to enforce. And it's a lot easier, by the way, when you're trying to call balls and strikes. It's hard to remember to say, okay, that was the first pitch. Did you note the time? It's a lot easier to finish your plate meeting, turn to find your official scorer if they're somewhere in the stands in AA, or if you're at Alamo or Los Eras, turn behind you and you say, note the time. The game has begun. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, that's a local rule you need to know, and it quite possibly will be on the test. Yes?
Like my brother played, he played at Alamo lots of times, and they didn't use the back part for the scorekeeping. They were usually in the back.
And you know what? You tell those people to get in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, because if we have a scorer's booth, you walk them in
because
there.
I noticed it was like just always like that.
Take charge of the situation and say, scorekeeper, you're actually working for me, and it's a lot better for me if you would come take and occupy a seat in the score booth. If the scorekeeper says no, you go to the manager and say, manager, I need your scorekeeper in the booth behind you, okay? Most of the problems you see are either at AA or majors for various reasons. AAA tends to be a fairly mellow division for a lot of reasons, but there are certain things that do go on like that. That and the people warming up players are the two biggest problems I've seen at AAA in my short time as the UIC. 3.12, you just need to know, it's obvious, it's self-evident. 3.14, you need to know, again, it's obvious and self-evident. We don't have a lot of spectator interference, but if someone's little brother runs out there and tries to grab a ball, okay, the batter's out. That's spectator interference. That's the preliminaries. The other things I want to cover in terms of preliminaries are the equipment check. Now, the equipment check is something you have to do before a game starts. Who can tell me when you report for your game? If your game starts at 5, when do you report? Will?
5 minutes before.
No.
Oh no, like I thought you meant the plate meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
About 5 minutes before is the time to start wandering out there for the plate meeting. That's
Yeah,
right.
okay.
But yes, if your game is at 5, you report at 4:30. Okay? I do not want to see people reporting late because you have a half hour's worth of work to do. You have to check equipment. If you are the plate umpire, you have to put your gear on. Let's talk about the equipment check. What equipment do you check? Bats are one. Helmets? Okay, what else?
Gloves.
You don't have
No.
to check gloves.
Cups.
However, there is one
They
aspect of
actually-
gloves you need to know.
They
Can a
actually do.
catcher use a first baseman?
No.
Okay. Can a pitcher wear a catcher's mitt?
No.
Okay. The catcher does have to have a catcher's mitt. That's a safety issue. Now, who can tell me what you're looking for with bats? Dense?
Composite.
Yeah,
Composite?
that's-
That's what you're looking for. You want them to be safe, okay? And you want, and
Shut up.
composite bats are deemed unsafe. Unless there is a waiver, whose responsibility is it to determine whether a composite bat is subject to a waiver? Jens?
The manager?
That's exactly right. He's got to show you the printout. If he can't show you a printout, what happens?
Oh, I was gonna ask.
Can't use that.
I was gonna ask what,
Oh, go ahead.
like, what happens if he doesn't have a
Then the bat can't be used. It's that simple.
Like-
If it's a composite bat and he does not have the ability to prove that it's subject to a waiver, which I've seen a lot of managers do by pulling out their smartphones and quickly calling up the website. But if he can't prove that there's a waiver for that composite bat, you may not allow it. Now, some of you, especially those of you who are actually on the front end, like first or second year umpires, may well remember from the year before which bats are subject to a waiver and which aren't. Okay, fine. But really, you have to put it on the manager. There was a question over here?
How can you tell if it's composite?
Because it says it's composite.
On the bat, it says composite.
Yes. I mean, Little League does not allow them to be used unless it discloses the type of composite. Okay, so you're looking for dents and you're looking for legal bats. What are you looking for? Yes.
Oh, I was gonna ask what are you looking for
What are you looking for with helmets?
cracks.
Cracks, that's the biggest one. What else?
Just some foam stuff on the side being all ripped up.
Exactly.
So all composite bats are illegal and they're not allowed to use them?
No,
If they show it to you.
unless proven otherwise.
Okay.
There, actually, a number of composite bats are legal because after Little League banned them, they went in and got waivers.
Okay.
And there's a specific list available on the website that gets updated from time to time as new bats prove that they're not really that good. I mean, that's really how you get a waiver, is to prove that your composite bat, you can use it, you have to prove it's no better than a regular alloy bat. So don't ask me why you do it, but anyway.
Does it matter if it says Little League approved on the bat?
The answer is not necessarily, because you have some older composite bats that used to have that on there. So if you see that it is composite, you have to you just have to make them show you a waiver. Okay, now, let's talk about the plate meeting. Can I borrow a couple of you to be managers? 82, come on up, I need 2 managers, come on, you come on up. What team are you? Pick one, you can be whoever you want. Giants, okay, you're the home team. Yankees, alright, you're the visiting team. Alright. As the umpire-in-chief, the plate umpire, I will be standing behind the plate. My partner, the field umpire, will move across and stand on the other side of the plate. He comes from the home plate, the first base home dugout, and you come from the visitor's dugout. We shake hands, how you doing? How are you? I'm Robert Ward. Looking forward to working this game with you guys. Lineups? Okay, that's fine. You asked for what? You asked for the home team first, then the visitor team. I got that right? Now, what am I looking for on the lineup card?
Who's pitching?
You're looking first of all, you have to have someone noted on there as the starting pitcher and the starting catcher. What else are you looking for? You want a batting order, absolutely, yes.
Ineligible pitchers.
Yes, that is extraordinarily important, and it is so important that you should say, I notice you don't have any ineligible pitchers on here. Is everyone eligible?
No.
Okay, who's not eligible? And then you're going to give me those numbers. Okay? Does anyone have any questions about that part of the plate meeting? Now,
What if they say they're eligible, but you find out they're not?
that's subject to protest, appeal, all that stuff later. Not your responsibility. It's an honor system in the sense that you are allowed to rely on these managers to tell you he's ineligible. If, for example, you find out that he pitched an ineligible pitcher, you have grounds for challenging the result of the game. Okay? But that's not something you have to worry about, Parker.
What happens if they do challenge it and then they bring it up to you?
They run the risk of a forfeit. And I mean, the rule is that if you use an ineligible pitcher, you forfeit. Now, it's a harsh result, we don't like to do it, and that's why managers are really, really good about not doing it, especially when you get to the majors level. Okay, so, I've checked, I've got your lineup, I've confirmed whether there are any ineligible pitchers, I've looked to see that there's a pitcher and a catcher on there. You don't actually care about the other positions. There are rules for minimum play between infield and outfield, and you don't need to know them for the test, and it is not your job to enforce it, okay? But you all remember this from playing AA, AAA. Remember the number of innings you had to stand in the outfield versus being in the infield. You remember pitching and catching rules, some of which you will need to know. Now, another thing that is covered at the plate meeting is who can tell me what you absolutely always should ask these 2 managers?
Do you understand the rules?
Close.
Are your players properly equipped?
Bingo, okay? At the end of the day, even after you have checked all of the equipment, you are a double check. You are a fallback. The responsibility to make sure that bats are not illegal, the bats are not unsafe, that all the equipment, helmets, everything else, is the responsibility of the manager. Little League puts a lot on managers. So what you say is, so Giant skipper, are all your players properly equipped?
Yes.
Yankee skipper, are all your players properly equipped?
Yes.
Do you have any questions about the rules? This is what you asked. Yeah, because for example, sometimes there are issues. For example, I don't even know what some of these issues are, but I just seem to recall there were always issues with the foul lines at Stone Valley and things like that. I guess that was more of a single A issue. But go ahead and invite the managers to ask any questions. Okay, anything else? Okay. You shake hands. Have a great game.
Not for the Yankees.
Game has begun. Okay. Anyone have any questions about the plate meeting? Chris, did I forget anything? No, I think. But those are the most important things. Get the lineups. Make sure there's a pitcher and a catcher. Make sure that there's some disclosure of ineligible pitchers, and you're essentially reminding the managers if they've thought of it, and ask them if their players are properly equipped. All right? Those are the minimums. You should, by the way, get 2 copies of each lineup. And what are you going to do with the second? You're going to get the white one. That one's yours. What are you going to do with the other one?
Scorekeeper.
It actually belongs to the scorekeeper. Now, most good scorekeepers who are dutiful will get that lineup beforehand from their managers. but that's what you're doing with it. Okay. So, and all of this is covered in 4.01. Okay, so that covers it all for you.
1 second.
Now, note 2, rostered players who arrive at the game site after the game begins may be inserted into the lineup if the manager so chooses. This applies even when a suspended game is moved to a later date. Typically what happens, if somebody's not there yet, put them last in the batting lineup. Okay? They're not obligated to put them there, but that's the best way to go about it. Okay, so you've had your plate meeting, the game has begun, you've shaken hands, take the field, turn around and started the game. Then, with great theater, what do you say?
Play ball. Play ball.
How about batter up? And this is where you can have some fun. Batter up, or batter, and then play ball. Okay? Now, actually, all you have to say is play, but if you want to say play ball to start the game, that's great. Now, does anyone have any questions about how you start the game? All right, now let's talk about when the game ends. Highlighted on the handouts for you are when the game ends. This will be possibly on the test. AA and AAA games go for 2 hours. And to ensure that they end more or less at about the 2-hour point, what is the point at which you cannot start a new inning? An hour and 50 minutes from
The start of the game.
when you turn around and said, the game has begun. You're not obligated to write down somewhere when the game time does. Your instrument, your right hand, one of your appendages, who is the scorekeeper, writes that down for you. If anyone here disagrees with this statement, feel free to chime in, but I'm going to just throw this out there for all of you who have worked AA games. The #1 cause of disagreement between you and a AA manager will be when the game ends.
Yep.
I dare someone to disagree with me and we'll talk about it.
I disagree with you.
Why? What do you think happened? You're wrong, of
You
course.
said it there, you so I did.
Oh, okay, fair enough, but you know you're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done, well, I know you've dealt with it. I mean,
Oh.
everybody has to deal with it. So for my new guys, the first year folks, be prepared to have managers who say, no, we get 2 hours. We get to start a new inning. You know, it's still within 2 hours. No, 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 no. Okay? Now, what if there is not another game behind it, though?
You play.
You play until the game is suspended by darkness or some other condition. So that doesn't mean you end every game after 2 hours. It is only those Saturdays when they're stacked up one after the other. Yes?
Can't you like leave after 2 hours and then they could play on their own?
No. Absolutely not. What I want to instill in you is, it ain't baseball without you. Okay, you're the third team on the field. You're indispensable. And Carson asks a good question, because some managers will say, well, we want to finish this game. It's extra innings. And, you know, our rules say you don't play extra innings at AA. The games can end in a tie. And if they want to play to the end, you say, no, you can't. Because we're not going to have people out there getting hurt in something that's not our league sanctioned baseball. Chris?
Alright, so let's say that the mercy rule kicks in, and there's no games after it, and they say, oh, can we just keep playing, you know, keep until the game ends?
No.
Then you can
Are you allowed to
leave.
stay?
No. You're done. The game is over. And let's talk about that. Let me take these 2 questions and then we'll cover the mercy rules.
Hey, Furman, give me 2 Reese's.
No, I'm not giving you shit.
I will give you the.
Get like dark and can't play.
Maybe
And
later.
they don't keep playing.
Give you the highlighter.
No. When you end the game, they're done playing. They get off our fields. They're no longer authorized to be there. Yes.
I don't. This is my second year.
I think give me a shot.
Give me a Reese's.
Let me take this one back here while you're.
Okay, after the 10-run rule, if you leave after that, are they not allowed to play after that?
Yes. I think that was. It's a variant on what Jacob just asked. But when the game's over, the game's over. You leave. There's no recreational umpiring, yes.
So when that inning starts after the 50 minutes, it can go as long as.
Yes, you do not kill the game at exactly 2 minutes with someone standing in the batter's box. They get to finish the inning. Now, mercy rule. Who can tell me what the 10-run rule is?
After the 4th inning, if the score, or if one team is leading by 10 runs, then the game is called.
Okay, if someone goes up by 10 and they're the visitor team, does the home team get their at bat?
No. No. Yes.
Nope.
Yes. No.
You can tell me why.
Maybe.
The answer's a maybe.
Ooh.
If it's the 4th inning, you've got 2 tries to try and recover those two 10 runs, depending on whether there's a 5-run rule. And we don't have the 5-run rule at the major league level. Yes.
And does the mercy rule apply to?
Yes, and all I'm going to tell you is pay attention to the rules I passed out because that's where they're found. Okay, the mercy rules are there. And I want you to know them for AA and AAA. The test will not cover the majors rules because not all of you will be working majors games next year. You don't start out working majors games. Okay, now we're going to cover how one deals with protests, how one deals with fan misbehavior, and how one deals with I deal with umpire misbehavior. How one deals with manager misbehavior. 4.06, please.
Okay.
This is where you have your authority to eject someone. 06.
This year to throw for now.
Okay? No manager, coach, or player shall at any time, whether from the bench or the playing field or elsewhere, incite or try to incite by word or sign a demonstration by spectators. In other words, you can't rile up the crowd against you. Use language which will in any manner refer to or reflect upon opposing players, managers, coach, umpires, spectators. Cause a pitcher to make an illegal pitch, mess with the batter, line of sight. I will tell you here in San Ramon Valley Little League, we have an unofficial rule. It's not written anywhere, but you will enforce it. Okay? Coach or manager drops an F-bomb. They get a warning. They do it a second time. They're ejected. Okay? And a lot of people, yes.
Is it just like the F-bomb, or is it any words that, like any profanity that they use?
You know, that's a very difficult question for me to answer because based on people's cultural outlook, religious upbringing, some people don't think, gosh darn, it's a profanity. Other people think that's taking the Lord's name in vain. I mean, let's just go ahead and get it out there. I don't particularly care if someone says, damn it, okay? But it's the kind of language that if you think about it, if your 4-year-old little sister or somebody else's 4-year-old little sister is there to watch these people's games, and you think that that is language inappropriate for that 4-year-old little sister to hear. Okay? I mean, you guys are all of a certain age, you've all heard these words before, they're not necessarily a big deal to you. Amongst you and your buds, you may use these terms yourself. But we want nice, clean, family-friendly, outlook, when we're at the game. Yes. Well, then you go over there and you hit that line and don't do that. Okay? And I don't want to hear this happening. Now, there's something very important in the rules. Can you eject someone for doing something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Only if you have given them a warning. No one can be ejected without a warning first. Okay? So let's say that you have a loud and abusive fan who is spending the entire game abusively berating you and other players. You may think that guy is some drunk dad, or that person is using profanity. How do you deal with that? You warn the manager if you can identify who that person is a fan of. You deliver your warnings preferably through the manager. Will?
I remember last year I was umping a game and the whole crowd, they all were drinking. Do I have to do something about that, or do I just leave them be?
If you actually see that they're drinking, then that's a pretty I mean, that, yeah, like seriously, he needs to crack open a bunch of tall boys and get to a double-A game. I mean, you should be there for your kids. But, listen up, guys, Will asked a very good question. It is against our rules, it is also against the rules of the schools on which we play our games to have alcohol on the premises. If people are showing up and drinking at our games, they are risking our ability to have those fields. Okay? The school district, San Ramon Unified School District, SRVLL, could say, guess what, Little League, go find some different fields. You're drinking on our property. So Will asks a very good question. It is serious. You go to both managers and you say, people are drinking here. That is not acceptable. You make it stop. It's not your job to make it stop. If you think that a behavior becomes abusive, you can deliver the warning and you can say, managers, if this doesn't stop, you've now been warned, I will throw that entire crowd out of this game.
Alright. That'd be awesome. That'd be sweet.
They have to leave the field.
That'd be freaking sweet, dude. I hope I get another game like that. So cool.
Quiet!
Okay, so wait, what if like a bunch of people are okay and then there's only like a few people drinking, then you kick the people again?
Of course. What you're trying to do is work with the managers to identify the problem. Now, yes.
If somebody's ejected, how far away from the field do they have to be? Like, could they, like, if a player's like ejected, can he sit in the stands, just not
No,
play?
you have to be off the facility.
Okay, so the whole field, like at Sycamore, they'd have to be like
If you
way
can see
off
them,
the
they're
parking
wrong.
lot. Okay.
Okay? I mean, or if you have the ability to see if they're hiding behind something. They have to be off. So, who wants to be a jerk manager for me?
Jess.
Alright, we'll use time this time. You don't like my strike zone. Come out and get in my face about it. And it's between innings. You know enough to do it.
Ferment.
Strike zone sucks.
Yeah, please.
Too big.
Okay. I appreciate your. Jonathan, listen. I appreciate your input. If you'd like to make a complaint about my strike zone, that's fine. Do not come out here and
Have the recess table.
Go back to the dugout. Let's keep this game rolling.
Does that count as a warning if you're going to eject him, or is that just like a you can't use it?
That does not count as a warning. Who wants to come up and, actually, who wants,
Jens.
I'll use all the profane.
Jens, come on up. Jens, come on up. Here's what, alright, I want you to come out and argue a call I've made where someone was so clearly safe and I called them out.
Kick some dirt. Dick.
Carry the base away.
Oh.
Whatever you want to do, Jens. Quiet!
I'm not so sure that was a strike. I don't like this shit.
First,
I don't like it.
I don't know why you're here because you didn't call time. So go back to the dugout. And that's your warning. That's your warning. If you come out of the dugout again without calling time, I will eject.
Kick dirt. What?
Okay. Who thinks they can come up and give me an example of a legitimate someone coming out? Come up with something legitimate. Let's say that there's runners, the bases are loaded, there's one out, pop fly to little Timmy at shortstop, he drops it, all the runners score, and nobody said anything. In other words, what rules should have been called?
Legitimately, or whatever y'all.
No, you can do either one.
Zinga.
I'd like to inquire.
That was the wrong call, and I think you should definitely rethink
Jens wants to do it.
Thank you. I will confer with my partner and get back. Then you're like, go to your partner. Dude, I totally didn't think about whether infield fly should apply there. What do you think? Okay, all right. The batter is out. And what happens with the runners?
They
They can advance.
Oh, yeah.
They're safe. But the battery's out. Okay, now does anyone have any other questions about how you deal with difficult managers or coaches? Is it on the desk? Just leave it there. Just leave it where it was. It's obviously someone that was in this class, not me. Take a look at 4.08, and by the way, this will answer some of your questions about the penalty. Take a look at 4.10C, which is the mercy rule. Take a look at 4.10D, which is if you ever, and you will, because if you for more than a couple years here, one of the things you will end up doing is working games that are being resumed because they had to be stopped for some reason or another. Darkness is very common, rain. I know one of you guys did resume games, at least a couple of them with Rick last year. So this tells you how what you resume. 4.10E is also the mercy rule. That's where you actually find the mercy rule.
It's for him.
Okay, so you need to know those mercy rules. There are different rules that apply at AA, specifically the 5-run rule. Okay, everyone understand the 5-run rule? Yeah. Okay, you only get to score 5 runs, and then the innings of that turn at bat is over for you.
Isn't there an exception to that rule when it's the 6th inning?
I mean, I don't think so. Let's look at it.
My league did that. Yeah. It was the 6th inning.
You know, some leagues do it. I know we've discussed it. It's 5 runs. Okay. I want to cover the rules that you need. Well, actually, these aren't rules. Everyone get this book out. You're going to learn. You will learn this on Saturday, but I want you to turn to page 10 of this part of it. Remember, this is a tricky double-sided book?
Put this in your ass.
I can't wait.
Turn to page 10. Do you see these diagrams where it talks about one base umpire? Okay? Do you see where it says base is empty? What you will be tested on possibly is where the field umpire stands, depending on whether the bases are empty, there is a runner on first base, runner on second base, runner on third base. Okay? So you need to look at all of these through page 17 that tell you where you must stand. Where you must stand, because I don't want you out of position. I don't want you to think I'll just stand over here by the first, the right field foul line because I really like it here and it's in the shade. This is where you must stand, depending on how many base runners there are and where they are. All I gotta tell you is read these. For those of you doing field mechanics this Saturday, they will be reinforced. You're going to have guys like Chris Gallinati out there kicking you in the tail if you don't move to the right position. All right? Anyone have any questions about that being on the test? Yes?
On diagram 2, does it matter? You have. Could you be on like the shortstop side right across from that, or no?
No.
It has to be.
No. Short answer is no. Because if you look at diagram 3, it'll tell you when you should be on the shortstop side.
Okay.
All right. Let's review. Anyone have any questions about what we've covered so far?
We covered this like a long time ago, but I'm still kind of confused on like balls out of play. Like, so if like a kid throws it and it hits the fence, is that out of play and the runner should?
Well, if it hits the fence, but it stays in play, then people just go where they're going to go. If it goes through the fence, if it goes out of the field, that's where there could be a question.
Stuck in the fence.
Yeah, what are you?
If it's stuck in the fence and that person raises their hand, you can make a ruling based on that.
Just tell me.
Well, it's in the rules. And I'm looking for the correct rules.
They'll tell you at the thing on Saturday. Yeah, sure.
Okay, take a look at 7.05. This covers when you can advance without liability. In other words, you're awarded the base. So, for example, 7.05G. 2 bases with no spectators on the playing field. The thrown ball goes into the stands or into the bench. All right. See that? So the answers to your questions are all there in Rule 7, specifically 7.05.
Open that shoe.
Yes. Then they can't play. That's actually in the rules. And I'll tell you exactly where it's in the rules, among other places. In the local rules, under defense, it says 10 players are allowed, this is for AA. 10 players are allowed on defense, 4 of which must be in the outfield, equally spaced and equidistant from home plate. A team may not play with less than 8 players in the field. So I guess you can play with 8. You can start with 8. Majors, the rules a little bit different though.
Oh, it's funny, you gotta get caught.
Take a look at the majors rules. Oh, where is Oh, I'm sorry, it's the Little League rules. You can actually start a game with 8 because you can have with bad 9 players to play majors game. And we have full, if players are short, we have the availability of full players, all that kind of stuff. So they're really, I understand kids can flake out, but it shouldn't normally be a problem. Okay, listen up. We're going to quickly go through a few things that I want to make sure you're prepared for the test. Rule 2, definition of terms. You have some ability, by the way, if you need a pencil or something, there's some in this box, but I'm going to tell you what you need to know. You've already been through these. You need to know what a ball is. You need to know what a catch is. You need to know what a fair ball is. You need to know what a foul ball is. You need to know what a foul tip is. You need to know what an infield fly is. You need to understand interference and obstruction and know the difference. You need to know what a strike is.
Can't wait.
You need to know what the strike zone is.
Are you shoot it?
All right, anyone have any questions about that? Oh, and you also need to know what a tag is. I'm sorry, you need to know that one. Okay. I'm going to do this one more time. You need to know what a ball is. You need to know what a catch is. You need to know what a fair ball is. You need to know what a foul ball is. You need to know what a foul tip is. You need to know what an infield fly is. You need to know what interference and obstruction are and understand the difference. You need to know what a strike is. You need to know what the strike zone is, and you need to know what a tag is. Okay? Talk about a few safety rules again. All right? We talked about bats and helmets. Another thing is what the catchers have to be equipped with in addition to a catcher's mitt.
A cup.
A cup. An actual cup, not a jock strap, a cup. What else?
How do you make sure that they're wearing a cup?
You ask the manager, are your players properly equipped? But if you find out that the catcher's not wearing a cup, you need to get that person because the kid gets hit there and he's writhing in agony. You know, yeah, you know. Quiet. What else does a catcher need? Listen up, guys. This is going to be on the test. They need the neck protector. What else? Catcher's mitt is good. There's one more thing.
That's a neck.
Well, the mask, but with the protector, yes. Well, I'm looking for something
Can I just hold him and sit on him?
chest protector.
Oh, I got this.
Can I at least have one versus
The flap on the bottom. How many? I know you catch. How many catches do I have in here? Okay. Jacob knows what I'm talking about. You know the part that's detachable on some catchers here down here? That is not optional. The catcher must be wearing it. You guys understand what I'm talking about?
I don't know. You don't have to. Yeah, I just cheated.
Alright, listen up. I'm going to cover a few more things.
I cheated.
I want you to pay attention to the index and know where it is so that you can find things quickly.
Trent. Where was the best number in the league?
Someone give me an example of a judgment call. Okay, now, someone give me an example of something that is not your judgment call.
Batting out of order.
No, I'm looking for something different. But yes, that's true. In the sense that it's objective, yes. That's a judgment call as well. I'm trying. I asked this the wrong way. I'm looking for something obvious. It's not your judgment call as to whether an adult can catch somebody in the bullpen. That's just not a judgment call. That's an ironclad rule. Maximum number of pitches is an ironclad rule. That's not a judgment call.
What?
All right. How many minutes between innings? 1 minute. Assuming they can do it within 1, maybe 2 minutes, how many pitches can it take? 8. What do you do if the manager says, Timmy, keep pitching, after you say batter up? Do that.
Shoot me right now. Do it. I dare
Can
you.
someone catch those warm-up pitches without wearing a mask?
No.
Can a kid be down in the bullpen without a mask? No. Who's allowed to have a bat in their hand? The batter. Who else? The on-deck player. No, only the batter and the on-deck player can have it standing right there next to him, sort of in his hand, but you cannot be swinging it. You cannot be doing this on the side. The rules actually say you don't even have it in your hand, but of course you can have it right there. Okay? Where is the on-deck circle?
There is none.
There is none. That's doing okay on these. Can the scorekeeper alert the manager as to whether someone is batting out of order? No. Is it your job to catch whether someone's batting out of order? One more, and then we're going to wrap up.
That was a little hard.
I am the second baseman. Okay? There is a runner on first. There are 2 outs. I am camped under a pop fly. I am standing right in the base path. I'm in the way. The runner on first runs into me as I'm trying to catch the ball. What is the call?
It's an out. Obstruction out.
Who's out?
The runner.
Right. You guys understand that? Okay. I am the catcher. A bunt is put out in front of me. I go to try and field that ball, and the base runner runs into me. Okay. While I'm in fair territory here. Okay, I'm out in front of the plate. The right-handed hitter runs into me while I'm out in front of the plate. What's the call?
I don't even want it. You can keep it. Oh, juicy.
It's interference. Take a look. Take a look at your definitions. Rule 2. I for interference.
Oh, I can't wait.
Offensive interference is an act by a member of the team at bat. Oh, I'm sorry. I was wrong before. It's interference when the first baseman runs, the runner at first runs into me.
You're confusing me.
Yeah, no. Let's do that again. What is it when a runner or a batter runs into a fielder trying to make a play? Interference.
No.
What is it when a fielder runs into someone trying to get from one base to another? Okay. It's obstruction. So, I am the third baseman. There is a throw coming from the outfield, and I am camped out in front of third base, in the base path, in the route. Player can't get to the base because I'm standing there. What's the call? That's obstruction. So let me review, let me go back. You're camped under the ball as the second baseman and you're run into by the runner on first. That is interference. No. What is an example of defensive interference? When the catcher puts a mitt out and interferes with someone trying to strike at a ball. Well, I don't know how you can have, I mean, if you look at interference rule B, defensive interference is an act by a fielder which hinders or prevents a player from hitting a pitch. I'm not quite sure how your center fielder can do that. All right, does anyone have any questions about base running rules? Like, for example, where the base path is? Or, like, when should you call someone out for running outside the base path? This is actually a pretty good guideline. Okay, so I am that second baseman who was camped under a ball. The runner on first goes halfway into right field to get around me. I drop the ball. He's halfway to right field. Should that guy be called out for running out of the base path? No. Because that is not defined until a play is being made. Okay? He can be halfway into right field, and as long as he is taking a direct route to second base and does not step more than
a step in a
basically a step and a reach outside. So you don't define being outside the base path until there is a play and he's coming in. If he gets here and the throw comes to you and you're the shortstop taking the throw and you're trying to tag me and then I run this way out to center field, then you're out. Are you allowed to block the plate in Little League? No. You have to have the ball in your hand. Okay? You have to have the ball in your hand. Is the runner obligated to slide?
No.
The answer is it depends.
You have to try to get out of the way of the ball.
Like he blows up a catcher? No.
Where'd it go?
You can't because he hasn't been warned.
Where'd it go?
Then you're going to throw him out.
Yes,
This is important. You cannot block the plate unless you have the ball in your hand. If you do not have the ball in your hand, you cannot do it. You are not allowed to be in the way.
One of our teammates last year, they just completely took out the catcher and they just got ejected right away.
You know, an umpire may think that he can do that. That's not Little League rules. I mean, I wouldn't fault someone if it was a... Actually, you know what? There is a rule under which you can do that because you're trying to deal with an unsafe condition on the field. So that's the way you can do it. That's not going to be on the test, but that's a good question.
If they do like two wrong things in one, like they slid into the catcher and said the F-bomb, can you eject them?
Did he get a warning for the first one?
Yeah.
The warning comes at the same time as the second.
That will not be on the test. However, if you look at Rule 4.08, it talks about giving a warning first. It doesn't say it has to be for the specific conduct. That is, however, the implication. So, to give you an example, where this really will come up for you are managers who are being abusive and how they challenge calls, and fans who are being abusive. Players, not so much. You might have a player engaged in unsportsmanlike conduct. You know, little Timmy likes to throw his helmet after he strikes out. That you would do a warning.
Oh my god.
I pick on Timmy, I'll do Johnny. Quiet! We have 4 more minutes. Question.
The kid was running up to the catcher at the ball, and the kid got near the catcher and reached out, and the kid with his glove and knocked him on the ground. His glasses went on because his helmet flew off.
Without the ball in his hand?
He had the ball in his hand.
Don't show me
I'm not quite sure what you're asking, but it's overly hard to ask. That seems like one last question, quiet!
That wasn't me, dude.
Come on.
That's a really good question. This is one I want everyone to listen to. Okay. If little Johnny will not stop swinging the bat in the dugout, you give the manager the warning. That kid has got to get the bat out of his hands. Okay? And it is your call. If the kid says, if the manager says to you, I can't control this kid, he's a problem for me, I don't care if you throw him out. Okay, give him the warning, throw him out next time. Because as I know we have a couple people who've done some coaching. There are some kids on your team you'd love the umpire to throw them out. Okay? But if your first order of business is to make the manager enforce that rule. Okay? And there's a couple of ways you can go about it. One is, I'll throw the kid out. Another is, we'll stop the game if you don't, because there's a problem here. Your kids, especially with multiple kids, are up on the top step of the dugout. They have bats in their hands. They're not following the rules. You need to get this under control. Okay?
So you said when the kid is swinging the bat in the dugout, it's a warning to the manager? So
it's both, but I like to go through the manager. I don't like to go directly to the player.
So is that a warning to him, like as in a warning to throw him out, or just a warning as in you need to get the kid under control?
Well, it's what I was saying earlier. You got to get the kid under control, and if you can't get that kid under control, we'll figure out how to solve the problem. I'll either eject the kid, or if I think you're the manager of the problem, I'm ejecting you. All right, we are done. Anyone have any questions about the test next week? It's 20.